Music to our ears. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. It's Tuesday. It's time for Tuning Up with Iggy and Dave from your Hawaii Symphony Orchestra, live here in this beautiful Hawaii Theater Center. I'm the Iggy part, and this is the Dave part. Dave, how are you? How was your week?
I'm good. The two things I can confirm, today is Tuesday and you're Iggy. Those are about the only constants I have in my week. So glad to be back for another show and really excited. Our pianists are multiplying.
Right. It's a lot of head turning tonight. You just heard, of course, Dr. Jonathan Korth. Are you trying to be like, Alec Baldwin in Saturday Night Live? Are you trying to be here as many times as possible?
I mean, to be completely honest, I think it's Monica's challenge to me. She was going to come on and she knows we're doing a concert together, and so she said, well, I wonder if we could kind of co-host a little bit, and then she would kind of evaluate if I was a decent partner or not. And
so we've had many guests from the mainland, from here, the island of Oahu, but we haven't had special guests from neighbor islands, and we are so happy tonight to welcome pianist Monica Chung. Monica, great to have you.
Thank you, Iggy.
And so I've known you for a couple years now, but this is your first acquaintance of our executive director, Dave Moss.
First time meeting you.
I'm really disappointed we didn't go to Kauai for this one. I joked last week that we'd be on the road, so I hope that sometime soon we can bring that to fruition. Yeah.
That's right, because I keep mentioning every week this favorite segment of mine called To Dave with Aloha. Dave, of course, been here working since last March of 2020, nonstop, spending maybe 15 hours a day in the office, and the next 9 hours at home, still working. But we'll get back to your background because you're not originally from Kauai, but what would you tell Dave to savor the next time he gets to go to Kauai?
Well, I believe the next time you get to go to Kauai will be your first time on Kauai. Make sure you call me.
Okay. Can do.
You know what? There's just really no choice but to really just savor and take every breath, one breath at a time. And everywhere you go on Kauai, the people are so welcoming and so friendly, and just be a part of that while you're there, even if you're there for work. And I mean, the way the island is, you won't have a choice anyway. So.
Excellent. I look forward to that, hopefully very soon. So, Iggy, can I jump in here? I've got to ask the question that I like to kick off. So you're a pianist, and you live on Kauai. Can you take us back to the beginning? Because Iggy mentioned that you're not from here, and I'll let you decide where the beginning starts for you.
Okay. So I've been on Kauai for 8 years, and to be honest, my last few years living in New York, I knew I wasn't going to stay there. I lived in New York for 18 years, and honestly, I did not think that I would go to Kauai, although I'm very lucky because two of my older sisters lived there and welcomed me with open arms every time I went to visit. And I did not go there with any expectations. In fact, I wasn't even playing at the time when I moved there. And I guess similar is kind of already coming full circle to what I just told you about when you're on Kauai, to take your time, and the people will welcome you like wholeheartedly. And when my first couple years living on Kauai, I just realized that there was a whole community there waiting and welcoming, and I just almost started over. I pretty much started over.
Wonderful.
I feel like the talent on Kauai is exceptional. I know that it's a super small island, and folks might not think twice about going the Kauai way, for example, when you're on tour of the Hawaiian Islands. But like the Kauai Concert Association does amazing work, and just I just feel really lucky to be there at this moment. And it's been 8 years.
And we'll get to it because I was lucky that you invited musicians like myself to Kauai and seeing your energy and how much you're able to vitalize or revitalize the community there, and they just go crazy when you're there on stage performing. John, I think you met Monica before me. How did you get to meet Monica?
As with all stories in Hawaii, I think there's a lot of kind of intermingling of people and friends. But I think we first met officially in the flesh during a Blue Note concert. It was just before the pandemic actually shut everything down. But previous to that, Monica has shown herself as quite a teacher in Kauai, and I judged one of her students at the Steinway competition, and had gotten in touch with her that way because she had this wonderful student who actually was so creative and musical, and I thought, who's the person that's kind of helping the inspiration behind this? So.
Did you, in New York, did you live in the city or you?
Did.
Anything you and Dave might want to share? Or?
We were probably there at the same time.
I
So
think
yes,
all
but-
three of us might have been
Yeah,
at the same time.
we were. Yeah. Watch out, Hawaii. Well, if you were needing to escape to Hawaii after living in New York, we probably had similar experiences,
Yeah.
to say the least. So you were a pianist in New York as well, teaching, performing, living the life.
Yes,
All of it.
please
Non-stop.
take us to that beginning of how you because I've met your mother. Yeah, and we'll get to it, but I'm very curious because I have Korean roots, and so do you. But my Korean roots took my parents to France. So this kind of immigration is from a French perspective. And I'm always fascinated. You would think that I'm familiar with Korean Americans because there's Korean blood and I know the dynamics between parents and children. But the truth is I'm fascinating because I always find it very particular and kind of a novelty because that's not how I grew up in France with immigrants from Korea. And anyway, we'll get to it. But how did you
Yeah.
become to be a musician, or what is it, that stereotype of the
It was-
the mother?
I would say yes. Short answer is yes. So I was born in North Carolina, coastal North Carolina, and I have 3 older sisters. And I believe I was still in a diaper when they stuck me on their lap and just, I don't know what we were doing, something. So the lessons quickly came after that. And as soon as I started lessons, all 3 of them quit. So it was up to me. No, there are no musicians, no artists in the family, and it just happened. And growing up in a small town in North Carolina, you know, I would say every teacher was a longer drive away. So much so to the point where my mother flew me to New York like every few weeks or so for about a few months, and I was 12 at the time, and when I was 13 they decided to my mother and I moved to New York. So there comes the sacrifice part, right? Like I mean, you think you're the only one, and then you go there and you're in a school where more than half the kids, it's a very similar story. You know, there is oftentimes a division involved with the parents to help support the child. And so that happened when I was 13. By the time I was 15, 16, I was becoming so independent that my mother and father were able to, you know, kind of reconnect.
So your mom was not the kind of pushy kind of mother?
Oh,
or
she was. Oh, yeah.
Because, you know, they I have a Russian friend who tells me that, you know, his Russian students, the mother, like, if you don't practice, you're gonna kill me. But if it's a Korean student, the Korean mother says, if you don't practice, I'm gonna kill you.
That's
Sorry.
pretty much accurate.
Anyway, good night, everyone. No,
Good
sorry.
night.
Good show. Good show.
Good thing my mother is not on social media.
No, but you mentioned those crucial ages, 13, 14, 15. And I'm sure John, Dave,
Similar.
similar experience where you have the nest, and at some point you sort of need to develop your own voice. I'd like actually to ask each one of you that question. How do you break out of this nest where you just do as are told, but at some point you need to kind of develop your own path? Monica, how you went over it very briefly, but was it an easy transition or?
You mean coming to Kauai?
No, from when you're like younger in your preteens, and then comes the age where
yes.
you kind of have to.
I remember the exact moment actually, because my mother, as we have already discussed, was very, very strict, very much, you're going to do this and you're going to do this.
But we love them dearly.
We do. I definitely would not be here without my mom. So I remember exactly when it was. It was, I was headed to the Corpus Christi International Competition, and I was 15, and I had been doing competitions, and I told her, I was like, Ma, it's time for me to go there on my own without you. And she was, of course, like stunned, not necessarily in a good way. But I told her, I was like, if I'm gonna do this, I have to be able to do this on my own, Like, what if you can't join me? Then, what if it comes like sooner than later? I gotta do this, I gotta be able to do this on my own. And so she very reluctantly agreed. Very reluctantly agreed. I think part of the reason why she agreed was because there was a host family involved for those who were underage. So she felt more comfortable about that. But I think it also helped that I came home with a prize. So after that, she was a little bit more understanding and respectful, and of me needing that.
Your space.
Yeah,
and
needing that
letting
space.
go. Dave, how was your transition?
My mother is on social media and is awake right now in Chicago. So I will just point to summer festivals as, that time when, you were dropped into this completely random group of people. You had to learn to fend for yourself as an individual, as an artist, and to absorb everything on your own. And so for me, it was, must have been 15 or 16 at Bowdoin International Music Festival in Maine. And for me, that's where it really occurred. You couldn't go home. And I remember being that age where I was like, I am over this. This is 8 weeks. This is 7 weeks too long. I'm tired of these people. I just want to go home. And that, I think, what really broke me and gave me a tremendous amount of independence then throughout the rest of my career so far. So
Yeah. Thank you.
Mine was quite similar, though. I had the opposite kind of experience. I think I went to Tanglewood for 3 weeks when I was in high school and tried to do everything I could to stay for the extra 3 weeks because some of my friends were doing a 6-week program. But yeah, I think breaking that bond, maybe similar to Dave, I had maybe more the rah-rah supportive style parents than the kind of hit me over the wrist with a ruler sort. But yeah, my dad likes to say that he was my hero for a long time, and then suddenly he became my arch enemy for 3 or 4 years, and then now we've reconciled and love each other again. But I think it was a tough high school sort of years for us.
Iggy, how about you?
Yes, Iggy.
Yeah, I think I remember also as well because we moved to, just like when you in New York, I moved to Paris with my sister who's a pianist, but also my mom because I was a bit young. So very very structured, almost like in a cocoon. But at some point, I think my mom didn't have as much time. She had to go through surgery and things like that, and I was completely lost. I just remember being completely lost, completely unmotivated. And it's like 12 was my best year ever. 13, not so great. 14 was my worst year. 15 got slightly better.
Well, do tell here. 12.
But yeah, just completely lost and not being able to relate with other people in the conservatory.
Yeah.
And finding friends. But I think that's partly my fault because just of the way I function a little bit. But it took a while to find the discipline and the motivation and the inspiration. I think it's easy to kind of blame. Sometimes I blame some of my teachers around that time, but that's the easy part. Yes. Anyway, I think we need a drink, but we need to know what we're going to drink or what.
We do. Well, first, because we're getting a few questions already, if you'd like to ask questions this evening, join in the conversation, you can text the number below on your screen right here, and we will answer those. And appreciate hearing from you. We do have wine and wonderful charcuterie plate from Hasser Wines from our friend Terry, who makes the charcuterie down the street here. Iggy, what are we drinking this evening? Well, we're drinking something different than what we're giving away.
Right.
So
I don't know why, if it's a foreign name of a wine, Dave always wants me to say it. But this is not French, so let me see. Oh, my eyes. Okay, it's an Italian wine, La Fiorita Rosso di Montalcino, 2017. Delivered to you. But Dave, we have actually a good question tonight that I think Monica.
Yes, can I put the disclaimer in there? You must be 21 and you must live on Oahu, or I suppose you could live on Kauai and we can send it home with you.
I'll take it back. I'll take it back.
So if you live on Kauai and you trust Monica.
Right.
Question, yes.
Trivia question.
Trivia question.
Brilliant one.
Okay, we're there already. So the trivia question for this evening is, what do you think what is the number of pedals that a pianist today will likely be using in a performance?
The maximum.
That was the bonus question.
That was a bonus question.
The maximum.
Okay.
Cover up these
I just
pedals
saw,
over here.
Oh, I thought you were checking. I thought you were
Yes, first.
And the answer is not automatically what you think it is.
Correct. So I'll repeat the question again. What is the total number of pedals that a pianist will likely be using in a performance? And the bonus question is, what is the maximum number of pedals that a pianist would be using in a performance today?
Great. So chime in, please.
Yes.
We were talking about charcuterie. And so I'm not sure, Monica, if people are getting tired, or not people, but if you are getting tired of people always broaching that subject. But you had your moment of fame, not just being a pianist, but being a cook. And can you tell us a little bit more about it?
I gotta say, Iggy's
Yes,
pretty
please,
good
John.
at sleuthing here. I was on a couple weeks ago and we found out some things that were well hidden in my past. So, Monica, welcome to the stage.
It's actually why you're back this week. Iggy's found a few more things we need to talk about.
So
Yes.
you didn't make charcuterie, but
I did not.
you
I
were specialized in
did not.
something. And so what is this moment of fame?
Oh, goodness.
We're all dying to know.
Well, this probably came from the interview, the teacher spotlight for Hawaii Music Teachers Association. I think the question was something like, what is the moment that you are most proud of? And I answered, I survived Gordon Ramsay. So I was on Masterchef season 2, and I made bibimbap, and I just have to tell you this real quick. So, if you've ever had bibimbap, it is a very beautiful dish. It has rice on the bottom and several different ingredients, which are usually vegetables, but everything has to be very separately prepared, and a nice perfectly fried egg on top. And they wanted me to fry the egg in 3 minutes while they're like assaulting me with questions. So I agreed, and they had the frying pan already heated up in front of them, and I get there, and it is smoking. It is way too hot. So I turn off the fire. I'm like trying to, yeah, I turn off the pan. I turn off the burner under the pan.
Okay.
And I'm trying to wave it while they're asking me all these questions because, I don't want to mess up an egg, fried egg. It's got to be a perfectly, fried egg. It has to burst perfectly. Anyway, so I made this dish. They gave me the apron, and I left. And I turned around, almost as soon as I exited this room, and I looked back, and all 3 judges were cleaning up my bibimbap. Just eating.
But that was off stage, or that was?
Yeah. I was like, because they eat. I cannot imagine how much they eat on the show. But I was so happy. I was so happy. Yes. So that was I survived Gordon Ramsay. Yes.
Was cooking a passion? Okay. How do you?
Yes.
Yeah, because they film you being playing piano
Right.
and all stuff. But Dave and I are wondering,
Yeah.
how do you end up on that show as a
Yeah,
classical
absolutely.
pianist?
I mean, I have another dear friend who I was in New York with as well, who's now a big personality on the Food Network, and so I do know that this is a path. So
Yes.
how did you get there?
Okay, so very simply, my favorite pastime in New York, and even now, is to whip up some food and have friends over, play a little chamber music, and just have a really nice time.
Pre-COVID, of course.
Pre-COVID, yes. One day we shall resume. And one night, I prepared this venison backstrap that, was gifted to me. And I had never prepared it before, but I was like, well, how hard can it be? I'm just going to wrap some bacon around it and put some reduction on it. So I had some friends over, and everyone's really, really silent. And I'm like, oh, maybe they don't like it. And then they're shoveling it in, and they're like, you should really go on one of those cooking shows. No, they said, you should really go on one of those reality shows. And for some reason, I immediately thought something like Bachelorette or something, I don't know. And I was like, are you kidding me? Just no. But they're like, no, the cooking shows. I was like, okay, no, definitely not. Everyone went home, and I went online. And I remembered seeing Masterchef, and I loved the previous season. And so I just looked it up, and there were applications.
Wow.
Yeah,
And
but
did
I've
you-
always had a passion for cooking.
Okay. Did you have to? You didn't have to play the piano when you did the interview, right? Then when you submitted your application, or did you have to say, "This is actually what I do"?
Yes, and I think that's why part of the reason why I was chosen.
So I wanted to ask you because I saw that segment, and actually we see your mom and I think one of your sisters.
My friend who lives out in.
Oh, your
LA,
friend.
yeah.
Okay, and so this is the part where I was talking about immigration and immigrants from Korea, and so this is they have MasterChef, I think, in England and in France. I saw French episodes when I was there, but the crowd reaction and how they format it is very much targeted towards the local audience or the national audience, so the American MasterChef. And so we see your mom that's so energetic, and we see you kind of cussing, and they kind of put a bleep on you. Was
Yes.
that what happens at home, or is that more like for TV?
Oh no, that was straight up stress. That was stress. So yes, they blurred my mouth. And yes, but my mom, I'm so glad my mom came out there. So she didn't know actually that she was going to be a part of it. I asked her, they asked me to ask her to come. And, but in the very beginning when I told her that I was going to be on the show, because my mom is an amazing cook and she loves watching cooking shows and she loves Gordon Ramsay. And I was like, Mom, I'm gonna be gone for a little while. And she's like, oh, you're doing a competition? And I was like, yes.
One of those competitions.
And she's like, which one? I was like, actually, I can't tell you. And so because, you have
The
to sign
non-disclosure.
non-disclosure. And so I had to try to explain to her that I was going to be sequestered. And she was like, huh? Oh, okay, I'll just call you. I'm like, no, they're gonna take my phone. And she was like, oh, well, then you can call me. I'm like, no, I won't have access to a phone. She's like, where are you going? I said, somewhere in LA. And she was like, but where? I was like, I don't know. And she's like, Monica, are you a spy? she was so like excited, but also terrified. But when they called her to come out, she was like, oh, okay, this is awesome. Yeah, she had a good time.
Dave, have you had bibimbap
Yeah, absolutely.
in Chicago or here?
Chicago, in New York, of course.
New York.
Yeah, absolutely.
But between Monica making bibimbap or Monica making venison, what would you opt for?
I think the bibimbap would be, that's what I'm craving right now at least, but maybe it's because we're talking about it at the moment.
Right.
But
That's right. So, John, you're here not just for a cameo appearance, but and Monica, as much as we'd like to think that you only came for us, you do have some things going on. Can you, either one of you, tell us about what to look forward to?
Sure, yeah. So Monica and I are joining forces here. We're going to do a couple of concerts. I'm going to let her tell you about the Kauai one, but we're going to appear in August on SCEP Live, which is the presented by Outreach College. We've been doing these programs throughout the pandemic, fall and spring. Iggy and I played on one in October.
Thanks to Tim Slaughter.
Yep, Tim Slaughter runs them, and he's got a great team. And anyway, they're broadcast performances. So we're going to do mostly a 2-piano program, which is a good thing. We pianists are a little bit territorial, so when we both sit at a piano, especially when you're a little bit bigger like me, there's a lot of issues with elbows and other things. So we decided mostly on a 2-piano program just to solve the space issues.
When you said elbow,
yeah.
it reminds me of this is what I hear, like how Schubert was maybe shy and didn't know how to approach women, so he would write forehand piano duet.
Oh, just a little like a
So he would
flirty
be
elbow or something.
close to his students, or whoever, and maybe that was his way. But
Now this is a little
sorry,
little less.
no, sorry, I'm
flirty.
We're not there.
It's just sweating and a bit of like bruising. Yeah.
Stay on your side. No,
Yeah,
stay.
I was thinking more like, American Gladiators piano style, the next TV show that we produce,
This is something that I've always wondered if Dave and I play chamber music, there's we breathe together, hopefully, and we set our bow on the string together. And I always find it so extremely difficult for pianists to play together, 2-piano duets or forehand. I don't think people realize how difficult it can be, Monica.
Especially because, for chamber music, we generally have a visual of everyone in the ensemble, but for duo piano concerts, the pianos are arranged so you're facing each other, but you cannot see anything else. And if you're playing with music, you can barely see each other. Although I think our height, we're okay.
Yeah. It's so tricky too, because when piano plays with other instruments or a singer or something, you're always kind of matching sound, right? But you have a very distinct sound in that ensemble, so you don't have to worry too much about the attacks or whatever. But the two of us playing together, and this is with every piano duo, I think there are immense challenges because as an audience member, you think we just kind of place down a key, but there are so many different ways to place down a key, and to be honest, Monica's fingers are different than my fingers, right? And so suddenly our tone is going to be very different. So how we start to match and find our attacks together, and there's a lot of work for really making it sound like a cohesive instrument. And then you've got the extra element of 2 instruments, and very rarely are those 2 instruments matched perfectly. Right. So then you're also trying to adapt to, okay, what's the sound of the second piano versus what's the sound of the first piano? So there's a lot of interesting challenges with the 2-piano.
I think, John, when you were here last time, you were talking about your influences. Monica, you talked about your New York years, but I read that you had a very influential teacher from Ukraine. Can you tell us about him? And I understand it wasn't just like a 1-hour lesson, but it was a whole journey every time you had a lesson with him.
Yes, yes. I've been so fortunate to study with a number of incredible pianists and teachers. And the one that Iggy is referring to is the late Alexander Slobodyanik. And I remember meeting him. I had just turned 15, and I had just performed the Saint-Saëns G minor concerto with orchestra, and I just thought I was.
Was that in North Carolina?
No, that was in England. That was in London, and I just thought I was, I thought, hot shit, right? I met him at a summer festival, at Vladimir Feltzman's summer festival, and the hour lesson turned into 2 hours. From the first moment I met him, it turned to 2 hours, and we barely got through the introduction. And that's when I knew. I was like, I want to study with him. I just really want to study with him. So,
And his name is?
Alexander Slobodyanik. Yeah.
From Ukraine.
From Ukraine, yeah.
And so I also read that sometimes it wasn't just about the music and the piano, but something about cooking or borscht.
Yes. He was one of my early influencers, and how this is this beautiful companionship and really way of living between music and food. And for as long as I can remember, I have this dream to create a food and music festival, maybe one day. He would. Yes, I had many amazing meals.
Amazing meals, yes. So, are there different schools of piano methods or piano playing? I mean, like for violin, maybe you have the Russians, you have the Franco-Belgians, you have the Americans, and Americans are a lot of the immigrants to the U.S. Galamian, etc. What about when you learn in New York or North Carolina, and when you learn with Maestro Slobodyanik? How do you mesh everything? I mean, are there I'm confused because I learned the technique this way, or?
Right. I think, the different schools of thought is, we could be sitting here till next year talking about that. But yeah, for sure. I think it's really important to remember, though, that even when you receive instruction or advice or direction from someone obviously with a lot of experience, and that instruction is very different from what you're used to, it doesn't invalidate anything or all the things that you had learned prior. It definitely doesn't do that. You as you continue to develop your skills and grow, you understand that at that moment, this person saw something very specific that could have used like a booster to the next step. And it's not the only way, of course, but it can be very powerful when you allow yourself to link into that instruction and that direction. So for example, Mr. Slobodyanik, he needed that freedom to do so. So for example, our lessons were supposed to be 2 hours, but maybe I had 1 2-hour lesson in the years I knew him. He needed that freedom, that room to continue to explore and develop at that time. And so I think that also when I met him when I was 15, he took me out of school. Well, I went to school like twice a week. He was like, you just need practice. But I trusted him. I did that. That was a change too. I think it's important for students to remember that as you continue to grow, these are invaluable tools at your disposal, and a new one will not make the previous one invalid. Yep.
What about you, John? Did you on your path cross teachers who had maybe you thought at first maybe conflicting philosophies?
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, I even looked for it. My first 5 years of study, I studied with people who were very much influenced by, and I'm saying, sorry, once I'm in conservatory, but very much influenced by a romantic sort of tradition of piano playing. So that was someone who was a Chopin specialist, and then someone who's through and through the Russian tradition. And then I said, okay, I feel like I understand this style very well, but I don't play Haydn very well, or Schubert very well. So then I sought out someone who was much more, had much more specialty in the Germanic tradition, and chamber music and contemporary music, and that's how I met Gil Kalish. And then, his whole approach to playing. You would think it's a very simple thing to just put down a key, but I would say for the many teachers I studied with initially, it's all about how do I release weight into the key, and then with someone maybe even more German tradition, it was all about how do I push my weight through the key, right? And so there was a very different sort of idea. Interestingly, they work for the different styles of music quite well. So, but yeah, it was for me. It was a real choice to find someone that was kind of the opposite in some ways of people I'd worked with.
And as both being educators now, how do you use that with your students? Is there one approach that you take, or is it based upon whoever you're working with?
Every single person is unique. Everyone has their own set of strengths, and you just. I don't want to say you personalize it. That's kind of vague, but you see what would be most effective and what would be most helpful, but also to find a way. Like, you look at what their strengths are, and you find a way to allow that student or that musician to really enjoy it and use it so that they it becomes something to be to look forward to be proud of, to have confidence in, and then that in itself will also allow the other aspects of their playing to strengthen as well. But everyone is so different.
Yeah.
What about you, John?
I love that answer, and I guess I'm always looking to accentuate strengths and then fill in weaknesses. Most of what I do, I feel like, is based around sound, but I do feel like there's some melding of the two sort of schools of thought in my head, and specifically for different kinds of music that I try and give students. But through and through, it's probably a Russian approach to start, and then we kind of add as we go. But yeah.
This is a question that Iggy has asked on previous shows, and I think having two pianists in the room, I really want to ask this. As you were growing as a musician, a young musician, is there a piece that stands out in your mind that maybe came a little bit too soon, or came at the right time, where it really pushed you and developed you as a musician, either technically or artistically? Is there something that stands out?
Go ahead, please.
I would have to say Scriabin Fifth Sonata.
Oh, wow.
Which Mr. Slobodyanik made me learn when
How old were you?
I think I was 16. It was only a year after.
It's a lot for a young brain to handle.
Yeah, no choice though. Yeah. It was very Russian style to just like throw you into the fire. It's like, no, it was great. But yes, definitely a turning point.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have an answer. I'm going to ask you to play the Scriabin.
I don't know if our listeners would really want to hear this right now. I don't know. I remember. I think this is true of a lot of young students. The first Chopin Ballade was my first kind of more epic piece, other than classical sonatas or something. And I remember practicing that coda for probably more than a year, but I remember many months, and really, I felt like it was at that time, it was such an expression of all this kind of torment I felt inside anyway. So it was the perfect kind of piece. It's a real narrated sort of piece.
And speaking of your education and educating others, I know that you've done very well, and some of the students have won the MTNA division or state competition this past fall. I think it's time to talk about how great Kauai is, not the beauty of it, but also the music there, and maybe time to do some shout out. I know Casey Parker is a violinist who I know well. She's played with us a few times. I'm forgetting names, but the wonderful bass player,
Daryl Miyasato.
Daryl Miyasato. I remember Daryl from long time ago, in the 90s, he was a student at UH, and then I think he went and did a master's at Manhattan School of Music, and doing a terrific job teaching high school and developing programs there. And those wonderful musicians over there, but I would say you're sort of the driving force. I mean, you came in years ago, and now you're music director for what is that British show that you did, a Broadway show, musical?
Sweeny Todd.
Sweeney Todd.
I got you, Iggy, I got you.
But as I was saying before, earlier tonight, how you were able to revitalize the community, just playing with you there, and then just the audience going crazy. And it's a huge hall there. It's it's not 200 seats, and tons of people. And tell us how you were able to kind of not pick up the pieces because there was always music, but how you managed to bring everything together.
This has been one of the most challenging parts of supporting enlivening community and really finding a way to support the arts on Kauai. There's not a single moment of it that I doubt or regret. Just a few years ago in 2014, I was asked to sort of come on board for the Kauai Concert Association as an advisor. And I just had this idea one of the ideas was to start, I call it a night of chamber music, which we had you over in 2019, December 2019. And the idea was that it would be this collaboration of artists, not just on Kauai, but to especially make sure that I include Kauai musicians, other islands from the mainland, and that it would, that a theme would be woven, interspersed throughout. But I wanted this so badly that I acquired a cello. And I just have to explain that real quick because I noticed that one of the reasons why chamber music wasn't happening on Kauai was the cost of a ticket from the extra flight for the instrument.
So everybody out there knows that when you fly with a cello, it's not really something you can put underneath an airplane. You buy a seat, and so you have your ticket with your last name, and then your cellist also has cello with the last name. So it's kind of a two
cello
for one.
Korth.
Yeah, cello Korth. If I had a cello, yeah.
So if it's a quartet coming out to Kauai, it's not 4 round trip mainland flights. It's 5, for example. And I just noticed this little trend that that was the kind of almost deciding factor, let's say. So I acquired a cello, a beautiful one from my mother. It's a very long story, but eventually it got over to Kauai, and it has. So I called the ensemble Henrietta, named after the cello, and I just the audience is, I mean, they just soak it up like a sponge. You saw, I mean, they can't help. I love them to death. They can't help but, for example, clap in between movements, even when you tell them not to.
There's nothing wrong with that.
No, there's nothing wrong with that, absolutely. But I just love the Kauai audience. They show up, they're enthused, they're a part. They really are a part of the show, and I'm really looking forward to John Korth coming over.
I'm excited to see those audiences and meet all the people too. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember Dave, a few years before your time here. I think thanks to a grant in aid funding from the state, the Hawaii Symphony went to Kauai, and we performed. I think Michael Stern was the conductor, and we had a great time. There was a guest pianist, and what I remember is that. So there was the tail end of the week, the series. We had already performed in Honolulu, and the pianist and anyway, things weren't so great, and so they would all each come to me like during the dinner before the Kauai concert and express their grievance. But anyway, but we had we had a great time. So hopefully, Dave. The next time you come to Hawaii, you'll bring the orchestra along?
Absolutely. I don't know about the next time because I'm hoping to make it over there pretty soon here. But it is something that we are committed to, is to taking the Hawaii Symphony all over Hawaii because it is Hawaii's orchestra. It doesn't belong, sorry Greg, just here in the Hawaii Theater Center or down the street at the Waikiki Shell. We need to be on the other islands and have a presence there. So soon.
Yes.
We're ready.
We're ready. Well, I actually had a couple questions about that. Actually, is there a resident orchestra over there? What is the classical music scene like? There was a question about teachers, which I know there's at least one, I believe. So, yeah, what's it like for young students or adult amateurs who are interested in playing?
Well, there is the Kauai Community College Orchestra, and Sarah Tuchiki does an incredible job there. I think that a lot of the music, classical music also really has been supported by her and all the work that she has done. I have to say that one of the things about the Kauai Concert Association, in addition to having artists come over for concerts, I mean, just the outreach services are such an integral part of that organization, and I mean, the kids soak it up like a sponge. In terms of classical musicians and teachers, there are just a handful. And we kind of all know each other. Iggy mentioned Casey Parker, a violinist who I know has played with you guys several times. It's hard. It's really hard. But when you provide the opportunity, the kids are there. And I am so looking forward to continuing that once things are starting slowly to move and pick up. Yeah, it's difficult, but it is surely there and alive.
Wonderful.
And there's so much work you put into, so you're very accomplished, superb pianist, but all those projects that you want to pursue, that take so much of your time that most of the day is spent on the computer, on the phone, and very little time.
Yes.
On the piano is, I can ask you both, is like, I mean, administration or is a lot of.
I used to have this rule that I would never, that I would be happy to direct, happy to produce, happy to perform, but never any combination of the two. On Kauai, I do all three. So yes, you're absolutely right. It never ends. And yes, it's a lot.
Yeah, and John, on top of that, you have the university, so that takes a lot.
None of us on stage know anything about admin work. I'm pretty sure. No, it's definitely a balance, right? I love your rule, Monica, and I was hoping you were saying some rule about, okay, I can do computer work for this long, and then I'm going to start practicing. I try to abide by these rules and break my own rules weekly. But yeah, there's a lot to organize. Yeah, obviously at the university, but then with nonprofits, and then your own performances, and yeah.
And I have an extra little complicated variable now. During the COVID times, I actually, because there have been no concerts and Henrietta, the cello, is not being played on, so I actually started to take lessons over Zoom. And the cello calluses are for real. Like, I mean, so it takes me like 2 hours to flatten the cello calluses, but by then my practice time is gone.
For us to match fingers, this is going to be a lot of work on my part to kind of get some calluses built up here.
And
Dave, are you able to play viola or harpsichord?
I have not touched the viola in an extended period of time. I'm not going to commit
Cobwebs.
to how long that's been at the moment. I have been playing a little bit more keyboard though, as I've in the office. Yeah, that it really helps settle me in the morning or after stressful fundraising calls. But yeah,
I bet.
Yeah.
Harpsichord, which reminds me, Monica, so there's a field that both of you are very much in love with, is the, you mentioned that you like to hear the early music of Boston. That's something that's been of your liking lately, and of course, Dave, that was your previous work, The Age of Enlightenment.
Yes, well-versed in the Age of Enlightenment.
For someone like me who's not an expert who's more into like, okay, Khachaturian, post-romantic, early 20th century. And if you had to introduce me to, what would you say, like 1500 to 1800 type of music? Enlighten me, please.
Oh.
I am also not an expert.
But you have enjoyed some of the early, so let's say I needed to dive into. So Dave, would you suggest, okay.
I would direct you straight to Rameau.
Rameau.
Yeah.
Sorry.
See, the wine. Yes. Yeah. Early French Baroque music is just phenomenal. Or how music came out of Monteverdi, for example. I think that's the period that really excites me because it's so tied to the vocal.
Small sort of work in ensembles or larger, or it doesn't
large.
matter?
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Anything. Yeah.
And Monica, in addition to early music, you also mentioned a couple names who I wasn't aware of, but Yael Naim?
Yael Naim, she's
actually
singer,
French / something
Israeli. She's a pop icon, but I know where you got your information from now. Yeah, just sometimes I just get into this. I don't know if anyone else here does this, but I get really hooked on like one song or one artist or one album. I can like sit there and listen to it 10, 12 times and not get tired, and then it's in my blood.
Well, so when I was young, it was classical music only, and my parents just like classical music and some French pop. We heard on the radio, but so it was only like when I hit that age, 13, 14, 15, I started to listen to more pops, and that's how I got to hear more. 1983, that's Michael Jackson, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Dave wasn't born yet, but then later I like Motown. But what is I just want to ask you guys: were you first immersed in pop music, rock, and then classical, or was it all together at the same time? Or
No, I was one of those kids that bought CDs out of the magazines and by the hundreds. And I have now thousands of CDs, and I remember. One distinct time I was driving way too fast. I kind of like Monica, I had to drive a long way for my lessons, so I would drive 2 hours for lessons. And I was driving too fast on a highway and got pulled over by an officer. And he thought it was the weirdest thing in the world. I was like rocking out to classical music, just blasting it out of my car, right? Going down the interstate. And I think he'd probably never seen a 16-year-old.
Did you still get the ticket?
I did.
Oh.
He didn't feel bad for you.
No. I think you had the Discman, right? So you had the Discman, and you plugged that little tape deck in, and then you could go. So.
And Dave, did you wide array of variety of musical genre? Was that always there from the beginning?
Yes, I think so. I've always listened to a very diverse range, and I was just thinking, it's like I hope he doesn't ask for specifics. But I've often read like the Mozart letters, and all famous people have these, and I'm always concerned that like someone will look back at my Spotify playlist and they will just judge me for the rest of history. So I try to cleanse that every once in a while with some good classical music. So Iggy, you always have the best questions.
I do have one more for Monica. Tell us about so you come to Kauai and you're a piano teacher, you're a piano performer, you have all those organizations. And then, like, lately you've had to take on more bigger projects, like being a music director for musical theater. Was that something you've always wanted to do, like for Sweeny Todd? Or was that something you've always wanted to do? Or did someone say, hey, Monica, we need someone to take us to Sweeny Todd? Or?
It was maybe a combination of both. So I just kind of laughed at how it came in full circle because when I was a kid growing up in New York, my parents, my friends, we went to Broadway shows, and nothing really grabbed me until I saw a recording of Sweeny Todd with Angela Lansbury, and I remember being 14, and I went up to my music teacher who played a clip of it in class. I was like, whatever that is, can I take that home? And so that I played over and over and over and over and over again. And you can imagine my mother's horror. But so that was the first musical that really just like drew me in. And it's kind of funny because when I was 14, I was like, I'm going to do that. And then lo and behold, fast forward however many years later, there was rumble that Sweeny thought was happening on Kauai, and then it was like, wait, but who's gonna be the music director? They're like, yeah. So then it happened.
Were you playing and conducting at the
I
same
was.
time?
Oh,
Wow.
I conduct.
And you asked the singers to be with you. I did want to ask something about your mom, because to be a musician, to be a kid having to study music takes so much time, and the parents have to, sacrifice a lot and spend a lot of time with whoever does music. So in my home, my mom was spending a lot of time with me. And I remember going to a summer camp one time, and she came along because I was too young. And then after we were done, we went to see my brother, and my brother played piano, but not as intensely as I did. And he was 15, 16, and he spent the summer picking up peaches to earn a living, as a kid. And so we went to see him, and I had just finished that summer camp in Austria and seen the house of Mozart and those beautiful things. And my mom, she felt really bad because she saw how hard my brother was working under the sun in the south of France, picking up peaches, and he was staying, at night he had to raise his tent. So it was really hot. And so you have siblings too. My question is, like, I guess your mom had to spend a lot of time driving you to the lesson, but did she spend as much time to your siblings? And if not, what was the dynamic between siblings who are musicians and siblings who are not?
I think I can say this safely, that I think all three of my sisters were very happy that she was always with me. Yeah.
Wow. I don't know if that's, Dave, did you experience any of that, or?
Oh, I was the youngest. My parents spent the most time on me, but there was a big age difference between me and my siblings.
Oh,
so,
me too.
Yeah, so that influenced it as well.
And John, or?
I was the oldest, and at some point they just kind of turned me loose. There was a couple younger ones they had to take care of, and
They always need more.
Yeah,
We're quickly running out of time here, and so I don't think we have a correct answer yet for the quiz question.
What are the answers so far?
full disclosure, I don't think I would have got the correct answer, and I'm a piano professor, so.
Yeah, so we've been close, but we have to think about modern technology. I think that modern technology, and you'll have the answer, I think. But there's a question that I want to ask I'm going to ask all three of you because I'm curious what Iggy's response is. And this is from Melina. Who is the most influential pianist of this century?
Oh.
Influential pianist.
Are we allowed to answer 20th century or 21st century?
I'll let you define it.
Oh, gosh.
I'll go first then. Since I'm not a pianist, so any answer I give is great, right? But I remember, and I hate to be so standard, but I remember listening. That was before the time of YouTube and everything, where it was harder to find actually pianists. But I remember listening to Rachmaninoff playing Rachmaninoff. And it was just very inspiring and just like a total different scale. And of course, everyone talks about Glenn Gould and piano, but I don't know. You might have a better.
I was going to say Glenn Gould. Thanks, Iggy.
I think every pianist has a place right here for Glenn Gould.
Yeah.
Well, mine is Richter, almost for sure. He was someone who was behind the, kind of the Iron Curtain for a long time, and then was allowed to travel and play, and it kind of blew everybody's mind. And he's still someone that it's funny, there are a lot of things I wouldn't necessarily admire or copy in his playing, but the musical idea almost always makes sense whether he plays it in half tempo or double. You know, like it doesn't matter a lot of the other important elements we think about music. There's just this musical idea and persona that's so important, not unlike Rachmaninoff actually, that just persevere over everything else. And yeah, he's definitely been my biggest influence.
Monica, do you have any?
Yeah, I just have this memory of listening to Glenn Gould for years and years and years, and not knowing what he looked like. And then when I saw him, I just remember that impact. You know, okay, it doesn't matter what your posture is or what you look like, and you can produce that kind of sound. But that also comes with, you know, this understanding of music in your own world and being able to share that with others so that they can understand it as well. It's fascinating.
Still no correct answer, so I think you're going to have to share with our audience what the correct answer is this evening.
So I know we're running out of time. The correct answer: how many pedals is a pianist today likely to use in a performance? Not always, but likely. And the answer is 5. So we have the standard 3, which I think are here. And of course, modern technology, a lot of us will use an iPad now. And in order to turn the pages on the iPad, you need a pedal system, and there are 2 pedals. And I actually had to get a concert dress for the concert you were on, Iggy, on Kauai, tailored. I had to cut out a section of the dress so that I could access those pedals without tripping.
Wow.
And the bonus?
The bonus, what is the maximum number of pedals that a pianist will be using is 6. There are 3 standard pedals. Fazioli makes a 4th. So I guess if you're ever in that situation, I would hope that we are not ever in that situation, but it would be 6.
Very good. Then you become an organ player.
Then you become an organ player. Oh, is it time?
It is time.
It's time.
Yes. Well, thank you for joining us this evening. Thank you both for joining us. Jonathan, we'll see you next week.
I'll be hiding outside the door and sneaking.
Absolutely good.
So, yeah.
Thank you. Really, it's a pleasure to meet you and to talk story around the symphony here. So Iggy, have a good week. Thank you all. We'll see you next week back here 7:30 for tuning up with a very special guest. Thanks for all your support.